Are we ready, Millie? Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Today is Monday, January 29th. It is 6:33 PM. Can I have a motion to go into closed session, please? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. We are now in closed session. Thank you. So, all the public part of the meeting, just for everybody's information, we were briefed on the IBPO contract, which is an item on our agenda for later on this evening. We did not vote on that. We did not discuss the Highgate Lane emergency sewer repairs because that activity has been settled. And we did have a motion in our discussion on the litigation regarding the wall that's being built on town property by Hampton Beach. And in that item, our solicitors asked that we retain a surveyor to do a survey, a clean survey of that property. Molly made a motion, I seconded it, and I just have to call the vote. So a motion was made and seconded to retain a surveyor for that to look at that piece of property. Molly, you made the motion.
So moved.
A second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Let's carry.
I voted no because we have a survey from the 90s and I don't think the land is moved.
Public comment. Oh, no, I have to make a motion.
Yeah, motion to seal minutes.
I have a motion to seal.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, on to number 4, public comment. Before we do public comment, if I could exercise some prerogative, it has been a challenging January for me, I have to say. My mother passed away and I was ill. But frequently on this island, you get a sense of why you love it and how great our community is. And I just wanted to say publicly how much it meant to me and to my family, the amount of outreach and offers of help and just checking in. I think it's helpful as even in sad or challenging times to be reminded that we live in an extraordinary community of loving people. So I just wanted to say thank you. Public comment. Nobody wants to follow that up and complain? Yeah, right. Exactly. Nothing tonight. Our consent agenda is brief. It's minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is adopted. Report from the town manager regarding public safety radio repeaters.
So I'm going to turn this over to Tom Rism. Howell was going to try to attend this evening's meetings, but I guess he could not attend. So Tom is here to
Great.
update. Tom and
Thank you
Howell
so
have
much,
been
Tom.
attached at the hip for the last couple of weeks, few weeks.
Good evening.
Hi, Tom.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
So the voice repeater system is a project that was started probably a couple of years ago as an idea that Howell had to improve the voice communications from the main tower at the police station to the corners of the island. And the 3 affected areas are basically everything south of the Beacon Hill and Pilot Hill area, everything southwest of there and a lot west of there, including Grace's and Dory's Cove. And the people that use the voice communications are obviously the police, fire, rescue, public works, and the power company. All use portable radios, both in radio to radio communications and radio to the home office. So that's when the tower gets involved. when the electric meter, the smart meters were put in, I'm going to say in 16 maybe, they had the same problem that the big tower at the power company could only see to the peaks of those three hills.
Right.
So a repeater for the smart meters was installed at Bushlot Hill by Sean McGarry's Road, Bushlot Hill, and Pilot Hill near just a little bit south of the school, and at Goose and Garden on Beacon Hill. And those picked up all the meters around the island, every single one of them. And so Howell put together this proposal to put a voice repeat, and I'll correct myself in a second. We are calling it a voice repeater, but they're actually only listening devices. And the reason is the tower is powerful enough to transmit to anywhere on the island except the Mohegan beaches, because the radio signals don't take right angles. They take slow angles, but not right angles.
Yep.
So that is something that we have worked out in a different manner. But those three towers are going to be listening for the 3-watt mobile radios and repeating that back to the main tower via broadband. And then the transmitter is putting it back out at the full strength of its power. The vehicles, the transmitter at the station is 25 watts. The vehicles have about 15-watt radios, and the little portables that we all carry are just 3 watts. So these listening sites will bring the radio signal back to Beach Avenue, where they'll be retransmitted out by the transmitter. So we should be calling them listening sites, not repeaters, but that's technical. Before broadband, it would have required the signal to be heard at those 3 sites, retransmitted on a different frequency to the main tower, and then put out back on the primary frequency. So it would have required 2 other frequencies to create the chain of events that got it done. With the advent of broadband, we were able to backhaul that signal to the tower at the police station, and therefore not need all those extra FCC frequencies, the costs, the renewals, and all that stuff. So we were sort of waiting for that to happen. They were waiting for that to happen. I got here as it happened, so we were just able to affect that. We have now in front of us a package that is going to provide all the hardware on the same 3 poles that the power company is using. We'll have to put a meter on those poles because they cannot give power away by statute.
Yeah.
But
You can't do something about that for us?
well, I'm sure there'll be compensation in kind of some sort. However, the only thing we have to add to those poles is our box with the transmitters in it, an electric meter, and we'll bring in the broadband signal for our backhaul. But at the same time, the power company would like to change their backhaul for the smart meters from cellular to broadband as well. And that will go straight to their headquarters. And so they're going to help share with any costs for Surtex to bring broadband to those towers. But I've been to all 3 towers, and they all already have broadband or fiber optic cables for residences in those areas.
Sure.
So that's actually a cost that we won't have to put much into.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Land is involved because the broadband is a big part of this, and how to regulate it and make sure all that sequencing is right and overlapping and some other things. So Amy and Michelle, who is still working with the broadband group, are working on their topology, the geography of their hardware. And Hal and I have settled ours. Fortunately, of the 3 sites, we have already put aside in past budgets the money for this because we've been waiting so long, the money just kept building on itself. And the fire department has volunteered or has offered to pay for one of the 3 towers, that there's no additional budget required to make this happen. So we are in the process now of placing POs for our part, the part that Howell is building. We're going to hire a 3rd-party radio company to do the actual building of the boxes, installation, and testing once it's installed, as the broadband group is formulating their part. And I'm pretty confident it will be in service by this summer.
Wonderful.
That's not a guarantee, but it's a very good likelihood.
Sure.
So I think we're in great shape. Things, as technology came around, it became easier and easier, especially once we had broadband. And I think that's why we succeeded so quickly once we give it our full effort. And you should expect a good outcome very soon.
Thank you. This has been, as Mary Ann and my colleagues know, this has been a particular thing for me, this particular issue. And this update is terrific, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. It does point out to me that everything you said is perfectly reasonable, and the advent of broadband has presented an opportunity, but there's no reason we can't. I mean, my frustration is that we have to get better about how we communicate this stuff, because it now makes perfect sense to me. It didn't for a long time, and if there's anybody who ought to, know, I've been asking about it for 3 years. Nothing that you said is anything but reasonable, and it'll probably be a better system because it was delayed, all of those things. But gosh, I had individual firefighters, myself, because, frankly, my family had a situation with this, and, gosh, we just sort of, generally speaking, have to get better about communicating this stuff. The town meeting did it 2 town meetings ago, so almost 3 years ago. Anyway, I'll get off of my soapbox there, but jeepers, it's a good story. We should be telling it.
I think the only thing I think we are hesitant to say it's gonna happen until it happens.
I agree.
That's the only.
Yeah.
thing that I think that's like.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate the work you're doing. All right, item number 7, discuss and vote to fill the seat of second warden from among the sitting town council. Martha, would you be willing to serve in this capacity as second warden? I think you would be terrific for it, and really appreciate your willingness to commit to it. So I would make a motion to appoint Martha Ball as second warden.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Are you going to oppose it? We got the votes, Martha. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Goodness. Thank you very much, Martha. Next, we have discuss and act on filling vacant town council seat. We had 3 or 4, I think, expressions of interest in this open seat. And before we start a conversation, I want to say thank you to people who are willing to step up to the plate. I can vouch for the fact that, and I think all 3 of us can, that it is it's quite time consuming. There are days it's challenging. There are days it's immensely rewarding. But it is a commitment, and it ain't easy. So thank you to those who have offered to serve. I'm not sure exactly how to go about this, but I have spoken with Tristan Payne, and I'm assuming others on the council have as well. I think he's a person who is of the island, is obviously committed for a lifetime to the island, who has really walked the walk on the island. And I would like to make a motion to appoint Tristan Payne to the vacant town council seat. Is there any discussion?
Just very pleased that we've had folks who are willing to step up, and I'm really pleased to have somebody who and I don't mean to belittle people who
No.
don't know replace flaws as others do, but there is some value in not having to explain what everything is. I don't know how, I think a gracious way to say it. But the next step, somebody else.
Yes.
Somebody else. explain.
Well, I think we had 4
Yeah.
very good
Yes.
people to work with here, and I hope that they will all get on the ballot in November
Yes.
and run against us.
Maybe against you. All right, we have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Tristan, thank you. You want to get sworn in? Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, terrific. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, Tristan. Monday. We'll deal with that. All right, Madam Clerk, do we have some public hearing dates? Item 9, act to set public hearing for proposed amendments to the Shoreham zoning ordinance. This first one, item 9, for those of you who didn't bother to read the endless articles about this from last legislative session or 2 legislative sessions ago, the legislature passed a pretty comprehensive update revision to the state statutes governing planning and zoning. A lot of it is technical, but some of it, you know, they are requiring that our ordinances be much sharper when it comes to what you can and can't do, et cetera. So I would urge you, when these get advertised, to look at them because it's really worth a read. I'm sure maybe the hearing won't go very long, but I have a lot of questions about it. Certainly, I know planning did as well. You know, we can we'll talk about this at the public hearing, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that Jen Brady and Allison Ring and Karen Browning we had a state provided language consultant on a lot of the language. This was a real heavy lift when you have, in all honesty, having worked on the next one we're going to set a public hearing for, we have ordinances that are pretty archaic when it comes to some aspects of them that haven't been updated in a long time. So it was, I think, in a lot of ways, Marianne, wouldn't you agree, a bit of an opportunity to do revisions that were really necessary.
And this is the beginning. I think we'll see some more coming
Yes,
out.
right. So what date? February 21st? I've forgotten. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to set the public hearing for this, for item number 9 on February 21st?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Item 10 is a new ordinance that we were sent by the planning board that comes from a several months long working group process to deal with accessory dwelling units. That's one I would urge you to read as well. We'll walk through that at the public hearing. That one is February 21st as well. Can I have a motion to set that hearing for that date?
So moved.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Item 11, discuss and act on 2024 dates for Blues on the Block concert series. Fred Benton Town Beach, July 3rd, July 17th, July 31st, August 7th, 14th, and 21st from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Yep, Jimmy's here. Do we?
How's it going?
Great. How are you, man?
Good.
I can't vote no on this. My granddaughter would kill me. She likes to
Okay.
dance on the dance floor. Any changes this year?
Just adding another date, just want to do 3 in August, which are just like every week instead of every other week. Seems like schools start early, college leaves early, so ending in on that August date seems like it makes most sense.
Terrific. And Millie, the paperwork's all in order. Are there any questions on this from the council?
My only question was about, that was actually more for Paul. Whether, if the police are normally there, do you guys normally have a presence, like somebody just hanging out?
We typically do not. We will drive by and take a peek every once in a while, but they've been doing the Blues on the Block forever. And we knock on wood, we don't have problems down there. So it's not,
It's going on its 21st year.
No, I understand that. I guess my sense is more just for consistency. There's other beaches with music where we require a lot of police, and this would be more of a community policing thing. What I have in mind, you know, what I'm thinking of, like just to be there in case somebody needs something, not a, you know, not, yeah. Anyway, that is my question.
okay.
Any other questions? Would someone make a motion to grant the special events license to Blues on the Block for July 3rd, July 17th, July 31st, August 7th, August 14th, and August 21st of 2024 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Second.
Second,
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
for all the
guys.
work you do there. It's a fun event. Yeah, right. Mary Ann. This is item number 12. Discuss and act on request from Mary Ann Matthews. These are on clerk base. Thank you for putting this forward, Mary Ann. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for receiving it. I'm not sure which one's first on the agenda. Is it the resolution?
A resolution.
So I sent a copy of the original resolution that we had some time ago in 2011. Somewhat outdated, and as you can tell why. So what I was asking the town is to give us a corrected copy. As you look at the old one, it was really kind of rushed done so that we could have some recognition for the monument ceremonies when we brought in the tribal monuments and did it. 2011 was the tricentennial of the back then. And so it was rushed, and there wasn't as much, history done. And we asked for those resolutions. It was very kindly done, and we received them, but they are inaccurate. And so what we would ask is that the town, these resolutions were set as history of our Manasean tribe. And it really is speaking more to the European history than the Manasean history. And the inaccuracy is the Narragansetts were the initial inhabitants, where our records and documentation, shows us different. So I'm just asking for an accurate history by resolution.
So the idea would be that we would ask our legislators to introduce this resolution.
Correct. Just as a matter of form, it's accurate.
Okay,
More accurate.
I think Kim may be the only person. Can you still pronounce that word?
Manasean?
No, the 250th,
The 250.
350th. What was it? Semi.
Tricentennial?
No, it was
What? It was a big one.
There's more than that. There were many syllables to it. She knew it at the time. Okay.
It was a lot of history and a lot being done, but it was rushed and it is inaccurate. So we're asking for it.
Okay, Marion, just a couple of things that I had. The state name has changed. Yeah, it's Rhode Island.
Yes.
And this is just a kind of a syntax thing. In 1985, an archaeological excavation was sponsored that located a year-round Manistee Village.
And there's been several,
Do you remember by
Issues?
whom?
it was historic, as I understood, it was the Historical Society had worked with Kevin McBride to do that.
Right, it was under.
But it was a grant, I'm just
It was-
not sure.
PAST was the acronym. I don't remember the name of what that stood for, though.
I can find out for you. I don't know. There's anyone here who's on the side who could give us that accurate.
It ran through the town. That's the only reason I remember it. Because it just says was sponsored. That
Yeah.
located a.
We can change that language to be more specific. We can take the sponsorship out. Honestly, we don't necessarily need to have a
An
sponsorship.
archaeological excavation located a,
Period.
let's just put it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are the differences between the old and new resolutions is largely the perspective, the historical perspective?
Yeah, the old
I
one
get it.
speaks largely to the European
Yes.
conquest as
Yes.
opposed to the tribal.
Uh-huh. Does anybody have any objection to our forwarding this request? We can vote on it. Any concern?
No, no, no.
Can I have a motion to,
Do we want to do this at the next meeting?
we can do whatever you like.
Well, only if we do it at the next meeting, we can have, at least
Oh,
one
the
more
corrected
council
copy to
person,
sign.
a corrected copy.
Oh, see, I don't have this one.
Oh, what, have you got a new one?
No, I just have.
So I've still got Sven Reesum's name on this.
Yeah,
No.
okay. We'll put it on the next, on our next agenda.
I mean, can we
do it
vote,
properly.
vote in principle or something, but
I think,
sign it
I think
later,
Mary Ann and
as
the
long as we
people here
know.
understand where we are. We'll just do it all in one.
So
I
you,
think Martha's right. So if
You
at
can
the
have-
next meeting, we could have a corrected copy.
Yes,
And then we could have all of the town council members put it on the agenda after Tristan's
yes.
swearing in, and then you have the full council on it.
well, I would only ask if you could approve it conditionally with the corrections at the next meeting, because if it's on the same
Oh, yeah,
night,
yeah,
and then I may
yeah,
have some
yeah.
conflicts in my schedule to get back here.
Yes.
I have to stand for what we do there,
Okay.
Martha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you hear where we are. We'll
Okay.
just want to make sure we get
This would only.
it right.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you. Second request, if Millie, I've got a couple of slides to. Oh, actually, those slides were to support the resolution, so if you don't need it, then we don't need it. The second request is regarding what is called the colored cemetery. Your packets.
That's
Yeah.
later.
Later.
That's a different issue.
They were on the same agenda, that didn't come from me, that came from the town. Which I'm very excited about.
No, this is you.
Yes.
So Mary Ann is gonna walk us through it. We have Mike Shea here to talk to us about it. And
Come on, Mike, let's go. The issue is that we have what's called the colored cemetery as a common name, but not a designation for the town. As we start to grow our genealogy, we're finding more and more death certificates that speak to the colored cemetery. Then it becomes the inaccuracy because the community sometimes confuses the Indian cemetery with what's been called the colored cemetery. The colored cemetery isn't an actual quote unquote cemetery, but history has designed it as being that bottom lot in the back northwest corner of the island cemetery. Our history and our family stories tells us that there was a plot of land that was donated to the town or to the families. We're not certain. We believe it was through the Champlin family, but we're not certain about that either because we haven't been able to find, or I have not been able to find any deeds to say such. I had a conversation with Edie Blaine, who thinks that there wasn't necessarily a point in time that we can narrow down. So it's going to take an awful lot of homework to find how that transfer happened. But there was a period of time when the people of color weren't allowed in the island cemetery. So this very kind family donated a plot of land so that the families here on island could bury their loved ones. The families used to take care of that themselves. So Mike tells us he spoke with 2 purveyors before him. The third one was the oldest steward of the lands at the time, shared with him that the families bury the loved ones themselves and they maintain the lots themselves. So there is no island town record on it. If there was one, it would have probably been burnt up with the town records that disappeared.
Okay, Mary, you're still talking about the corner of the island cemetery.
Closest to the road.
Okay, just for reference, prior to, I think it was 61, there were very few lots in that cemetery that were maintained by the town. They were only the perpetual care ones. When I was a little kid, we maintained our family plot. So everybody did. It wasn't just. that one.
Yeah. So I spoke with the Blaine family, same thing. So that's kind of been the story of the island, and that's the story of a small island, and that's the way it is. Issue for us is identifying where our family members are. When we go to the lot now, there are 3 stones from the earlier families, or the latest families that were buried in that lot. When I had a conversation with Mike about identifying space so that we can do a better job in identifying place, his concern was that obviously it's going to cost the town something to clear the lot. And we're asking that the town give the direction to clear the lots. So then we can identify where some bodies are in that space. There is some ground radar that can be done, and I'm happy to work to get some grants to do that. There's lots of preservation funding available. It would likely have to be in conjunction with the town. So we'd like your support to help get some grant funds to do some radar work. And it, I think, could help all of us, not just necessarily our particular families, but if we could ask to have those lots cleared in that area, and then we can find some grant funds.
Is that
to-
area overgrown? Is it overgrown now?
It's overgrown and it's a very steep pitch.
I see.
So had there been stones there
You said it's
back in the day,
Northwest corner?
down the bottom of the hill, in a valley.
Okay, gotcha.
So
I see.
it abuts the walking trail that's over there, which is
Are these the
additionally
ones-
concerning for me.
Are these the ones behind the West Side 20 on the other side of
Correct.
the wall there? Okay.
Well, the way it is on the map, it has that pitch, but when you walk the grounds, it really goes toward that walking trail that's back there. So I'm incredibly sensitive to obviously desecration of a cemetery space, but we not knowing without having done the work, I
Mhm.
just ask us for the due diligence to confirm that we're not, having a walking path and doggy pooping on grave sites. And if we could get your help with that, we're asking.
Mike, do you have any thoughts on this or any additional thoughts? Mhm.
Because I have never seen any records of that area, nothing ever mapped out. And Millie's and I have, looked through everything that there possibly is, and there's just, I'm not saying it's not there, we just don't
Right.
know if there's more. Now, Mary Ann has come up with death certificates of other family members that there's just zero record of them.
Not the
In
people,
the
the
cemetery.
cem- the
Yeah, yeah,
burial.
The actual
Yeah, yeah.
burial.
Yeah.
And even on the death certificate, it says, buried in the colored section of Island Cemetery.
So these so that's why I was wondering why we had death certificates.
Just
as-
validate.
So
it.
these are people that you believe are buried there, but there's no stone or marker for them.
Well,
Okay.
no, these are folks that we believe are buried there. We don't know if there are stones amounts that have been covered over. Now, I understand that Mike and his staff at some point had kind of brushed through there to look for stones. and couldn't find it.
Maybe 2 years ago.
We've been talking about it a little while, and and my husband and I went through with weed whackers. Here's the issue: it's in the bottom of a valley. So as you can imagine, over the years, not only with the overgrowth, with the dirt would have fallen down on. So there may well be markers underground. But we won't know until we research that.
So,
But I have to imagine that our family history is accurate, and that they are in there, but where we have to find.
so I think as you would, it would not come as a surprise. This group is very, very welcoming, to what needs to happen. This is just so far out of my area of expertise that, I'm tempted to say, can the two Mary Anns and Mike sort of figure out what you need to do, given the sense from the council that we are committed and respectful and want to celebrate, preserve, etc., whatever we need to there, because it's an essential part of our history, and there are people who were formed part of the backbone of the community and ought to be appropriately recognized and celebrated for that. So, but
I ask
this
only.
strikes me as being fraught with, well, you should have, or you should, here's how you should, I don't know how to do this, whether you have to go in with a bush hog and a weed whacker, or whether you have to go in with ground penetrating radar. It's just not my, I think I now know where it is, but I
It's
have
very
not.
pretty.
yeah.
It's not at the front of the cemetery, it's at the back.
Back corner.
Yeah, it's beautiful back there.
Mm.
So, I mean, I think it definitely in order to do this, but there's some legwork that has to be done before you can even apply for grants to do the kinds of things that you want to move forward to doing. So I would agree with Keith, but do we need to make a motion that Mary Ann will work with them, or just?
Because it will require direction for Mike, which I'm sure Mary Ann has the authority to do. My concern is that it will also include staff funding, and it's going to be financial to kind of do that. I don't know. But I would imagine that it's going to cost a little something. Maybe it's winter time, you have more time that you can do it without an issue, but we spoke last. It was because it was going to be costly that he asked that I find some proof, which is why I'm here.
And ultimately, I'm just jumping ahead, and I'm just presuming you're going to get all this done. Everything's going to be set. What I would really like to see done, and Mike might be, I'm sure Mike would remember this, 20 some years ago, someone wanted to be buried in that area. And because we couldn't guarantee where it wasn't, it didn't really, I mean, I remember saying to somebody, when it's somebody else's heritage, we're not going to, which puts us in really sticky ground.
Thank you.
And it was at a council meeting, it was public. So if once this is all done, we can somehow get some area delineated in some way that's historic, I think that
That's the ultimate
that takes a
goal for me.
lot of that covers a lot of ground. And so we'll know, and we won't, some future council won't be having to grapple with the same issue that we did.
Thank you.
I guess sort of to my earlier point was, I don't even know how do you go about that. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, I can do the legwork, and I'm happy to do that. And I can work with Mike and Mary, and obviously, it's important to us. And I've several preservation grants that are actually still open, so we can get them in right away. But we want to do the homework, but you're allowed to do pre-planning in those grants, so you can use that funding. You can get funding for the planning of the process.
Mary Ann Crawford, what makes sense to you?
I think let the three of us get together and regroup and discuss this. Let me meet with them and discuss this and let's see where we are and run with it.
And some of the grants, for example, will require that the council adopt a resolution, or,
Exactly.
I think what you're hearing here is we're happy to do that. Whatever you guys think makes sense, I'm in. And I think we all
The state preservation grants are all, they have to be put in by the town. It can't be
Okay.
individuals. So we
All
need
right.
you to do that.
Just
That's-
a little bit I can add is, I have walked in that area in the winter time.
Mhm.
I don't believe there's any stones that are visible around, but that's not necessarily uncommon. Even in the old section of the cemetery, there's probably twice as many burials as there are stones. It wasn't easy to get stones out here at that time. But that doesn't mean there's not people buried there. The clearing is not a big deal. That can be done, especially if there's no stones in the way. And the ground penetrating radar, I've never done it before out here, but I would think that would probably be the biggest cost. I'm assuming it is. But as far as the clearing, and all that, that's minimal.
I think we're gonna find some number of our costs, and I'd love to just do it anyway, is to digitize the volumes of the records that we have. That would simplify the process in determining what the parameters are in the graves. So if we look at the different parcels of lands as they transfer to the island cemetery, you can identify, well, with certain markings, who maybe over time and how that island cemetery has grown or maybe been delineated, and that would only come from the deeds. So if we were to be able to find some funding to digitize the deeds, it would be so much simpler to search them.
Great, talk to Marianne and Millie about that, but I would just add this. We can't be the first community that has wanted to recognize and celebrate this sort of lost, sadly lost part of history. So please, as you're doing this, see what other people are doing.
Best practice always.
Because it can't be unique to us, sadly.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your accepting the offer, and I will be in touch with the
Thank you,
two.
Marianne. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for bringing this stuff to us.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, e-bike tours. Item 13 is Karen. Is Karen here? No, Karen's not going to be here. Do you want me to give the background on what we've been
And I
doing?
thought we were going to move this to the next council.
Oh, the next council meeting. Oh, okay, sorry.
Once you guys get.
I'm
have a
sorry.
Conversation.
Sorry. Do you want me to give
Yeah.
the background on it? Okay. We received as you know, it's been on clerk base, we actually acknowledged it as correspondence recently, a letter from Zena Clark about her Block Island bike tour business and concerns about or trying to ensure that there weren't any ordinance changes that need to be made or what have you, policy changes. Marianne and I met at some length with Karen Browning, our land use lawyer, about this. I think it was actually before Christmas. And there are a couple of concerns that I think we all share, which is A with a bullet, this idea of doing bike tours along the line of the one business that's doing it now is the kind of tourism that I think everybody wants to encourage and celebrate. It's a great idea. It's, secondly, if we do decide that we want to do a particular ordinance related to these types of tours, that we make it as tight as we possibly can. That was, I'll be honest with you, that was my primary concern. I did not want to do an ordinance that had anything that even resembled a loophole that would somehow make it, you could have your iPhone map open and rent an e-bike and call it a tour. It has to be a genuine tour, et cetera. So if the council is okay with it, I think I would like us to ask Marianne to direct Karen to do a draft that we can look at soon on this.
You can have it for the next meeting,
Okay.
which is right around the corner. maybe we won't have it on Monday. Now that we've lost a few meetings here, I'll see what Karen, may have some stuff pretty well.
Yeah,
I'll chat
I
with
would
her
think,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So we want to have a draft. It says on here, it says receive report. So we want to have a draft written before we receive her report.
So, when this meeting was rescheduled because of me to today, I think Karen was no longer available, so we didn't, she was gonna report basically what I just
Got
said.
it. Got it. Okay.
So, we'll be on our way. Mary Ann, do you want to take over this, item 14?
Sure, as long as, so I'm hearing it's a consensus of the January.
Yes,
council.
yes.
So I'll run with that. Jim Jeremiah, who's our town engineer, he's been our town engineer for, I don't know, 35, 40 years now. I've been talking to him extensively and also with Mike Shea regarding the Fred Benson Beach parking lot. So I've asked Jim to join us this evening. He can provide a historical perspective of that particular beach, the parking lot, what has changed in recently years, what may be adding to some of the additional flooding that we are seeing there or the water not draining. And he's also prepared to present a potential of a couple of solutions for that particular
Terrific.
property. So Jim is
Hey,
here.
Jim, thanks for joining us.
No problem. I'm glad I could. I'm glad everybody's healthy now and we can
Yes.
go on with this. So, basically, I just wanted to take a few moments to kind of give us a little background on where we were and what started the immediate problem or the most recent problem. As you know, when they were laying the cabling from the mainland, the cabling company used that parking lot to kind of service what they were doing. In order to do that and to stabilize the soils, what they did is they brought material in and, caused a good hot compaction so that their trucks couldn't travel in and out without making a muddy mess of things. But when they left back in 2021, the cable company paid for the excavation of that unsuitable material. And the community brought in what I called engineered soils that meet the criteria for on-site or OWTS systems, finely graded to allow for infiltration into the ground. And it works for a period of time. But as we're all aware, the conditions that we're now experiencing with these more significant and intense rain events and the frequency of those rain events, it's becoming more and more difficult to allow this water to infiltrate without ponding for a period of time. We're getting rain events of 2 to 3 inches on a weekly basis. And it doesn't allow the soil that ability to drain into the system or into the groundwater. Mike and I kind of have discussed this, and if we put aside the weather conditions and the extreme conditions, there are some issues that we talked about. I wanted to assess what's made this condition worse now than what people had experienced earlier. And I'm sure Martha can shed a lot of light on this as well. But we got to recognize that this is the low point in Corn Neck Road, or at least this section of Corn Neck Road. So what happens is all the runoff from the road is now contained within this area. Also, when the parking lot expanded, prior to that, there was a shoulder in the road, which the groundwater or the runoff would go to the shoulder and kind of sit there, pond up, infiltrate into the ground without making its way into the specific parking area. Now, once the parking lot was expanded, Mike had to cut in what I call culverts, or little drainage areas that allows the water from the road to kind of make its way into the parking lot. So now this has created more of what we would call in a subdivision, a retention pond. We're now taking the runoff from the road and moving it to the parking lot in the hopes that it will infiltrate into the ground. We want to keep it away from the harbor because we want to prevent it from polluting, because obviously runoff from roads have silt in it, soils, oils, and other contaminants. So we want to prevent it from going into the coastal area. So we want to bring it back into the parking lot. Now, if we do that, we need to consider a couple of options. But I want everybody to understand, there's nothing we'll be able to do with the storm surges that are occurring, like in December, January. That storm surge that came up from the ocean came underneath the beach pavilion and into the park lots. Those areas are extraordinary, and there's something that we won't be able to maintain. However, if we take a look at building some sort of retention pond, and then infiltration system in the parking area, we can then deal with it at least on the reasonable storm events. If we're going to get 10 inches of rain in a month, that may not be the case all times. But what we need to do is look at what we can do to contain the water and infiltrate it into the ground without just letting it spread over the surface area and then infiltrating. What that's going to mean is permitting. If I inject it in the ground like infiltrators, I will have to get a DEM permit. The town will have to get a DEM permit for underground injection of the stormwater. So whatever design we do, whether it's a swale, if we just created a swale and cause a retention, let's call it a little pond area on the curb line, and maybe, unfortunately, you lose parking, you can create a swale without going to permitting it to be a maintenance or a CRMC FONSI for that particular task. So those are the only two options available to you. The last option is not something, you want, if you really want to consider it, is that when ponding occurs, you apply to CRMC and get a permit to periodically pump the water that's collected in the parking lot and discharge it. Now, we would have to select an area off of the bluffs that CRMC will accept for us to move that water and allow it to infiltrate into the ground. So basically, that's what we're faced with. I'm not, what direction the town would like to go in. But right now, we cannot, what you've in the past experienced with infiltration, just because it's a gravel road or a gravel bed, is not going to take it. There's too much water coming down, and the intensity of the water, it's going to take days to infiltrate. So we want to move that detention time from days to controlling it and moving it into the ground. I'll give you an example of what was done at the intersection of Old Town Road and Connecticut Avenue, I believe. No, not Connecticut, Sutter Road, where it comes down from the airport. It makes the corner. It ponds there for a while because there's so much water that comes off the road. But over a short period of time, that disappears into the infiltrators that are along the side of the shoulder of the road. So that's something that can occur. Some of it will infiltrate, take time, but I think that's an option if you want to consider that. Obviously, there's a cost associated with that to do that type of work. Not a whole lot. I mean, with today's rain events that are occurring, that's about the best options you have for you. Unless you want to build up, the last item, which I don't think you want to do, is build up the elevation of the parking lot and keep the water on the road. And I don't think that's safe. For safety reasons, I don't think that's a good idea.
Jim, of course I have pictures.
Yeah.
Only back to 2018, when the water's across the road and the parking lot is full of water. It is a low point in the road. and I always go back to this. Why don't we just raise the darn road?
That's an option. All we'll do is move the water. We can raise the road. It's a DOT road. We certainly can elevate the road. But the parking lot is lower than the road. But what
Right,
you-
but
I know what you're saying is that dip in the road that causes the ponding, just change elevation to move it further down.
Mhm.
That is certainly an option.
I know it seems counterintuitive, but it feels like having, going by it every day, that this really, it's gotten a lot worse. It's gotten a lot worse since all of the work was done. It's gotten a lot worse with these increasing rainstorms. But when they did the parking, when they redid the building, when the state still owned it and redid it, late 19, that's right, thank you. That was the year we had the hurricane. That's when it really started. It's just been going downhill since then.
Yeah, or you could bring up you can compensate, bring up the elevation of the road and let that water stay on the road or move it down. I mean, there are options. We can survey the road, try to find the changing grade, mill it, and then just change the grade along that road. Obviously, it's a DOT road, need their permission. And hopefully they can share in the cost, but.
They've done it before, for pity's sake.
Right.
But what did you call the stone at the end of Center Road?
It's an infiltration system. We put in infiltrators, which is like a honeycomb, if you remember the old septic systems.
Yeah, I
You
know.
can-
I just was looking for the word. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Laura, do you have any questions?
So I just had a question. When you're talking about a retention pond, are you talking about something where would that be? And would it be taking up part of the parking lot that's there, or would it be somehow underground?
Well, no, it would take up some of the parking lot. Where the ponding occurs now, we would create a swale area. Would have to figure out the physical size, but we would lose parking. You would lose the parking along the edge of the road there, because that'll probably be an area where you want some sedimentation to occur, to have the water just pond there, settle there, and give it time to infiltrate in that specific spot, as opposed to spreading over the entire parking lot. Because that's what it's doing now. It's just, if you walk by the beach and Corn Neck, you'll see this, Mike, is it pipe or little culverts in there that allow the water to drain off the road? There's one pipe. Okay, so that pipe keeps it off the road and brings it into now if we plug that, it's gonna stay on the road. And in the summer months, may not be as big, but the winter months is terrible. You don't want ice to build up. You don't want people to get hurt and cars, etc. So as Martha suggested, or is one option, if we raise that road, move the low point further down, it'll still, we're moving the problem further down. There is, if I'm not mistaken, where Beach Avenue enters Corn Neck Road, we can bring it down that far. There's a point on the side of the road where we can spill that water. But again, that would be regrading of the road.
And then you would be talking about a retention pond. Like
What I would do
further
is go to,
down.
yes, so what I would do is go to CRMC to create, you can put the vegetation in there, create this ponding so that it would move further down. Mike's got something.
Mike, maybe you know the answer. I should know this. I don't. Do you have any idea when they put the big septic systems in down there?
Yeah, I know, ask the question again?
Do you know, have any idea what year that was when they put the big septic systems in?
Oh, for the beach house?
Yeah,
That was right around 91. When
that's
they
what I
redid
thought,
it. It
yeah.
was probably within a year of that. So 90, 91, 92, somewhere in that ballpark.
Go ahead, Mike.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but even if we take the rain runoff and bring it further south to a low area, which there is, it's a spot that would actually be good to bring it. That's only the runoff from the road.
Yes.
Right.
And that's not the majority of the water in the parking lot.
Thank you.
We'll still have the problem,
Mike,
just not as much.
I am so glad you raised that because frankly, I've been sitting here thinking because of the change in intensity of the storms and how much water is being pushed and the amount of rain and the you know the frankly the violence of weather nowadays, we'll be chasing solutions like this for the rest of our lives. And is this an opportunity to rethink that whole thing? You know, and maybe it means that you move the beach house back and turn it around and have dunes that block the water from that parking lot. Maybe, you know, I am not a hydrologist. I don't, but I can tell you that it feels to me, because I was on the council last time, Jim. I mean, you know, we had this on our agenda, you know, every 4 weeks for a couple of years because we were blaming it on the damned cable and, you know, the cable installers. Well, you excavated out all of the stuff that they left there, and the weather's gotten worse, at least anecdotally. And we have this infiltration, as you're saying, Mike, from the ocean side. And I wonder whether this is the kind of thing that we ought to be doing with you, Mike, and with Sea Level Rise folks, and you know, a planner or whatever, and Jim, obviously, a more comprehensive solution to this very, very heavily traveled and battered part of Court Neck Road. Now, there's like one of the things that I'm really excited about, Jim. I don't know whether you know about this, but the Land Trust, the Block Island Conservancy, and the Nature Conservancy just preserved all of the lots on the ponds, on the salt pond side of Corneck Road there. Okay. And the town retained the right in that transaction to do green infrastructure. So, you know, maybe there's a solution that involves both sides of the road that is acceptable from a conservation perspective, that is a broader than, you know, maybe for 4 years, this will work, but the weather's gotten worse. And then maybe for another 3 years, this will work. And maybe I just sort of, I feel like instead of chasing what I think is probably inevitably short term, is there a way to reimagine this whole thing? It's obviously going to cost more money, but I actually think this is that spot is a bit of a laboratory for other coastal communities who have similar problems, and there may well be federal money available to say, you know what, let's reimagine how you do a public beach pavilion, and here's how we do walkovers that are over dunes that are handicapped accessible, and you know, here's how we move waste, and by the way, whatever, the buildings are now easy for Bain Transud to hook up on a tractor and drive away to a high spot when there's going to be a storm. And you know, it's just, let's view this as an opportunity. It's free to think about and talk about, and then see what our appetite is as a community, because you could do some cool stuff there.
Oh, I agree. I think the issue with the beach pavilion and the storm surge is something that the specialists have to take a look at.
Yeah.
The specialists have to take a look at, because that is a big influence on what's coming in this area.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, You know, Mike
If-
said it well. It's, you know, we'll take care of the water and water and stuff off the road, but boy,
I was just gonna say that my big fear is we're gonna spend a tremendous amount of money to try and fix this, and Mother Nature always wins.
yes.
We're gonna spend this money, it's not gonna solve the
You and I
problem.
are on the same page, Mike.
Well, you could, it's evidence about, as far as the flooding that's occurring on the mainland here. You see time and time again, you try to resolve it. As you may know, I'm involved with the town of West Warwick. There's an area of West Warwick, every 5 years, it floods, all the homes get flooded out up to the first floor. And then they pump it out and they start over again. And that's not something, you're spending money needlessly. And I agree with everybody. I mean, there's an immediate reaction. What's gonna happen now?
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to look at that,
Sure.
but you're right. There is a long-term with sea level rise and climate change. There's a whole level of things to be done. And maybe we look at sloping the existing parking lot from, I call it the walkway area, where where the
Mhm.
concrete is, pitching it away. So it slopes towards, there's a field that on one side, on both sides, there's the leaching field for the septic systems. So, I mean, we can look at that when Mike gets out there to regrade it that he does every year. We can look at those conditions and try to move it in that manner. But I will get the land available that Land Trust and Conservation purchased and take a look at that and talk with my biologist and my CRMC experts to see what we can do in that area and maybe not raise the road, but shed the water in both directions. At least take care of the road. You know, I mean, there are two aspects. Obviously, well, three. The ocean coming in, what lands on the parking area, because it's a big area, and it infiltrates in, and what comes off the road. So if we can kind of divide and conquer, maybe we can minimize the amount of times the ponding occurs.
But if you look at Corneck Road, and you see like a picture that Martha was just showing from 2018, the last big storm, I saw Paul Dean at about 6:30 in the morning. We were down by the beachhead. He was standing at the passenger side of my truck and getting hit with waves on Corneck Road.
Right.
So you know, it's when I look at that, I think of the problem. Obviously, the road is a component, but this to me is not a road project. It's a resiliency project. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So I just, and whether that means that we should have some night a few weeks from now, a meeting where we just sort of talk about what are the resiliency opportunities from Yellow Kittens to the Scotch Beach entrance. I'm making those points up, but I'd love to hear some nitty gritty from Mike about what he and his guys see, and you know, from you, Jim, what you may have seen other communities are doing, and from the Sea Level Rise folks or Brian Oakley, or like what are they seeing? Because I'm sorry to get cranked up about this, but I think if we view this relatively narrowly, we'll be missing an opportunity to do something that's interesting and impactful over the long haul.
I agree. But bearing in mind that, and I'll say these nasty words that Martha and I've been doing this for a long time. One of the things that Corneck Road, that stretch that you just mentioned, is what they consider this barrier beach.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of a barrier beach is to protect the shoreline and then disappear when necessary. So,
by the way, Jim, as you know, my mind is totally open to Keith. You're full of it, and you just press on.
Thank you.
Is it
Judy?
appropriate to
Yeah,
get
go
up
ahead.
and make a comment? So Judy Gray, Chair of the Block Island Sea Level Rise Committee, Sands Pond Road. So fascinating conversation. I thought, well, I don't even need to come to this meeting today because everyone's saying everything that I would have said when I got up about paying attention to sea level rise. I think we have a real opportunity here. We have some new funding that's coming, being made available to us for resiliency on Corn Neck Road. And so I think this is an opportunity to get all the right minds together, including, we have funding to bring other people in, experts in to help us. So I think this is very timely.
I think we have a razor's edge here
Yes.
between getting something done and moving and paralysis by analysis.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, we have to be very mindful of that.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to get smart people together and figure out what you're going to do, talk about it in the community and do.
Right.
You know?
Well, that would be my preferred action. But
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
I think we've got a, Tristan, did you know what you were getting into? Got some
He hasn't been sworn in yet.
great local knowledge. We got Mike, who's got tremendous history.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff right here. We've got Jim, who's been working with us forever. And I've said this I've said this many, many, many times. I don't want to see another computer model of where the water went on Mansion Beach during Sandy, because I walked that beach and it wasn't where the model said.
So you guys you and Mike and Jim are working on this, and I celebrate that. I do think it's worth having a broader conversation around, the resiliency opportunities here.
So Judy touched on, I was going to bring it up in my
Yeah.
town manager's report, that we did receive a $465,000 resiliency grant.
Yeah.
We just got notification. It was one of the higher amounts
That's
of all the
fabulous.
communities that applied, and we also have the NIPA grant. So we have about 650,000. Yeah, and Judy, myself, and Allison have a meeting with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank in 10 days or something like that, to get clarification with them based on what they awarded to us. What exactly can we do with those funds based on our application? So, and we may be
Cool.
able to come back within, a few weeks, a
Yeah,
month, as to
great.
what we can be doing.
Great.
That's fine.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? Jim, as always,
Oh,
thank you so much.
You have
Really
a great
appreciate it.
evening, everybody.
Yes. Is Mike behaving?
Yes, he is. Yes, we're working very hard. As Mike would say, that we will have some ordinances for you also on what we're doing.
Oh, wonderful.
So we're
Excellent.
trying to
Fantastic.
formalize some things, so.
Terrific. That's great. Thank you. Item 15, discuss and act on resolution in support of Juneteenth. As most of us know, Juneteenth is now a state holiday. I must admit that until I started doing reading about Juneteenth, I didn't know a lot about what it was. And when I started reading, I noticed that there are towns throughout the country, basically, who have passed resolutions celebrating this day. I did not know the history. So I put this resolution together. It is widely cribbed and plagiarized from other communities. And I know Martha has some comments, but I do think there is value in being a community that recognizes and calls out the value and importance of this holiday. What they get wrong with that?
Oh, the only.
This is a really minor,
I'm teasing, of course.
a minor
So,
thing. It's not wrong. It's just, it has listed here, communities in, across the nation, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, Emancipation Day, Black Independence Day. And I would suggest, not including Emancipation Day, just as a matter of, clarity. Emancipation Day is a holiday in DC. It's a separate holiday. It's in the middle of April, because sometimes you hear about it when you hear about tax filing. Of course, Massachusetts has an Emancipation Day, which is in July. I don't begin to understand that, but Massachusetts does have its own wonderful holidays. And I would just take it out, just to not further boggle that up. I think otherwise, I think it's fine.
Right.
So by passing this, does this make it a holiday for our town employees?
It already is, as I understand it, right? Right. Oh, we'll make it a holiday.
It'll make.
Well, that's
it a
right.
holiday.
But it
I
is
would
a,
say my understanding is just the opposite.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was, because it was a state holiday, it was therefore a holiday.
Holiday on, as of January 1st, 2020.
so it is.
It is already a state holiday
State holiday.
and a federal
Right. It was
holiday.
already a state and federal holiday.
I think it states that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was confused.
Yeah, it says it, whereas Juneteenth is now a state and federal holiday. So it says,
So it already is a day.
no, it's not an official holiday for town
Yes,
employees.
That's why my.
So what happens if, because it's a state holiday,
Yes,
if town employees work, you would have to pay them time and attendance.
I see.
So that's when it's state, there's about 10 state holidays that are outlined in the Rhode Island general laws. And this was included effective January 1st, 2020.
So if we pass this, it is now a town holiday.
Correct.
Yes,
That's what I'm.
gotcha. Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm sorry, I got confused there. It's been 2 weeks since I've had a meeting.
Surprised you know our name.
Are there any other additions or comments, or can I have a motion to pass this ordinance?
so moved.
A second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Oh, sorry, David.
Now that it's an official town holiday, presumably you'll be rescheduling the June 19th council meeting.
Yes.
in a time.
Yes, we will be. Yes.
Thank you.
I was ahead of you. I knew you were gonna ask that question.
Are there any days in June?
Started where you were
Are there
going.
any days in June when you're out of town, Louis?
This is a holiday that will actually be on the day. Is that right?
Correct.
That I
Yes.
didn't know. Okay.
Yes. All right, item 16. So, we were directed by the council, myself, Mary Ann, Sven, before he resigned, to go forth and exactly, Sven, to go forth and develop a relationship, strengthen a relationship with Orsted. As I've reported in other public meetings before the council, Mary Ann and Sven and I met with them. I've had ongoing conversations with the project manager of all three projects that are out on the water. The relationship is what we found. Mary Ann, please add if you want. What we found was a real, very strong desire on Orsted's part to engage with the town. And we began talking about a range of their priorities, our priorities. They are actually bound under the federal permitting process to spend money on mitigation on historic properties. And we've talked to them about potentially significant investments in the Northlight. We've talked to them about multi-year commitment to fund planning or consulting for the sea level rise effort. We've talked to them about an idea that really started with Molly, which is really to embrace our near history as a community that arguably is the only town that has really walked the walk on offshore wind, and celebrate that by actually making it a destination for people who want to learn about wind energy. The rough vision would be there are many places on the island where you can actually see both deep water and in the very, very far distance the other offshore wind, and doing a system of kiosks. Yes, Jess, I want you to be involved in this as well. Kiosks, app-based tours that are not just, hey, look over there, that's where the wind farm is, but hey, look over there, here's how they were constructed. Here's how our power co-op works. Here, you know, I think we can leverage this activity out there into something that would be very attractive for people to come and see and learn about. And frankly, I think, you know, if I'm being honest, it drives me crazy that one of those projects is called South Fork. And they're talking on the South Fork of Long Island about how wonderful their wind project is. And it's not their wind project, do we see it? So I'd like to, you know, make sure that we are, maintain our position as a leader. So that's where we are on that, but it frankly also leads us to the real, you know, another real challenge, which is we have an agreement with a law firm, Cultural Heritage Partners, that was unanimously retained, I don't know, 3 years ago, to work on this. Their work I will stand by, because a town the size of ours does not have the resources or expertise to engage in that federal permitting process. So it was very, very helpful to have them. But I think we are at a point where our direction, which is to work with Ørsted around the things that I described, and frankly, more in the future, is probably not best served by being in an adversarial legal situation with Ørsted. So we recently had a regular call with Cultural Heritage Partners, expressed, I think, in the strongest of terms, our gratitude for their work and their expertise, but said that it was likely that the council would be contemplating no longer retaining them. So I wanted to get a sense from the council of whether you wanted us to have James or Nick write a draft for us, a letter to send to Cultural Heritage Partners, again, that thanks them for their work and moves us beyond that place. No. I didn't feel comfortable doing that without you guys. You think so?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
My
I
voice.
think you and Sven are the only ones who have met with Orsted, so if they're genuine in their commitment.
Yeah.
If you feel they're genuine in their commitment, then yes.
I do feel well. And I think Marianne would agree.
I do agree. It was a great meeting.
All right.
And Keith is also right, to take some umbrage at these other folks over there who are now saying they have the biggest wind farm.
Martha and I don't get along with people. Anyway, all right, so we will, I will ask Nick to do that. Contract for Paul Dean, item 17. Where are we, Marianne?
So what's before you this evening is a contract for Paul Dean. As you know, you appointed him some time ago on January 8th. This contract has been drafted and viewed by Tim Cavazza, who drafted it all. It's very similar to other police chiefs' contracts. Paul has reviewed it also, so we're looking for approval of this contract this evening.
Great. Are there any questions from the council? Comments? Thoughts? Well, following up on that, I agree. I think this is an approach that's really good for us, and appreciate the commitment you're making to the town, and it's a commitment you've had for many years, and I really do appreciate it. I only have 2 words for you: Weldon's way.
Could you please vote on the contract first?
Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve Chief Dean's? Second. All those in favor of approving this contract, say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Paul, thank you and congratulations.
Do we have the swearing in date nailed down?
Yeah, swearing in date was the 15th.
Wednesday.
No, 14.
14th. I'm sorry, 14th.
Oh, I can bring my red roses right here for you that day.
Well, yeah.
Martha.
Your kid's gonna be able to make it then, Paul?
February.
Yes.
Oh, good.
We ran out and talked about dates for a little bit and full schedules and whatnot.
Good. That's
Martha
terrific.
couldn't do it.
Obviously, whatever works for you will. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's really cool. Fantastic.
Bookends.
Good deal. Are we having another meeting over there, Millie McGinnis? Marianne, would you like to kick us off on IBPO? As I said at the beginning of the public session of this meeting, this is one of the items that was discussed in closed session, is the approval of a new contract with the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. Before Marianne introduces it, he's not on, but there were 2 people who spent literally months on this. Marianne and our labor solicitor, Tim Cavazza, and I think they did a really wonderful job, and I applaud them and the local representatives for the union for reaching this agreement.
So Keith is right. We did successfully negotiate a 3-year contract with IBPO Local 720, which is our police union. to go over some of the financial stuff, we do have fiscal impact that is here on the table that we will post up on Clerk Base. We had to wait for the council to approve it to do it. Is that their work schedule on average is 42 weeks and it's an increase from 40. So there was a 5%
Hours.
hours. I'm sorry, hours. I'm sorry, hours. I'm looking at hours and I said
Yeah.
weeks. But anyway, a 5% increase to reflect that. Also, salary increases retroactive to July 1 of 3%, July 1, 23, July 1, 24, 3.5, and July 1, 25, also 3.25. Longevity pay increase from 6 to 7% for those members of the union that have worked 20 years or more. A medical premium co-share as of July 1, 2023, up from 6% to 10%. July 1, 24, 12.5, and July 1, 25, 15%. Also, beyond the fiscal piece of it, there was a lot of language in this contract that needed to be updated for a number of reasons. We really worked very carefully and closely with the union on that. This contract last time was negotiated back in 2016. There was some statute that have changed, some general laws that have changed, and those items were all updated. And to echo what Keith said, Tim Cavazza was great solicitor, but more importantly was the folks from IBPO, specifically John Rossi, who is the UNICEF, who is their state rep, but also Sergeant Joe DiMaggio, who is Joe DiMaggio, who is their lead negotiator for the police officers. He sat through all these negotiations, and I commend him and thank him and the police officers for the time they spent on this negotiation. I think this is a good contract for the community, and I am asking and recommending that the council approve the contract as presented.
Are there any questions for Mary Ann? I think what you see here is no different than what you're seeing in communities all across the United States, which is if you want to attract and keep police officers, you have to start paying them. You know, I think it's I trust everybody who is at the table that this is a fair and reasonable contract. Can I have a motion to approve this contract? Motion's been made and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. Item 19, receive update on governance of island-wide broadband. I'll make this quick. I've been working with Barbara McMullen as the council directed me to before the holidays. Basically, we have come up with what we hope is a reasonable structure to kind of really flesh out this direction of having broadband be administered by the power company. And where we arrived is we'd like to put together a committee of 2 town council members, 2 members of the power company, and 1 member of the public who would be chosen by those 4, and really work hard over the next several weeks to come up with something to put before both boards. I assume that minds haven't changed about this would probably be the ideal approach to ongoing governance and staffing, et cetera, and not making it a town department or so that I have somewhere else to forward the emails. And since I've been involved, I would like to do it. I don't know which of you 2 would like to be involved in that. You want to do it? You want to do it with me? Kristen, you want to do it? All right. Tristan and Keith will do it. By the way, Kim Gaffett was behind you going like this. No, actually, I'm excited about that. The fact that it was brief doesn't mean. Next, we have discuss and act on a letter of support for aquaculture infrastructure grant. I just want to give a quick introduction to this. I got an email probably on December 22nd or so that there was an urgent deadline for a very cool grant that would be administered by is federal money administered by a local food security, would you say, organization to provide funds for aquaculture infrastructure. I met with some of the group of aquaculturists on Block Island on December 24th. And provided a letter from me in support of the grant application. There may be more we need to do in the near term. If I recall correctly from George Davis, the awards would be made in early summer, but clearly we are, I'll make up a new word, under infrastructured when it comes to our aquaculture industry. Should we call it an industry, Sadie? And I really wanted, Catherine and Sadie have been really the point people on that, and I wanted them to come and explain what the grant opportunity is, so that we can embrace it and go forth with other things that we may need to do in order to make ourselves ready to get this money and advocate for this money. You want to come up, Sadie, or George, or Catherine? Sorry, that thing is in a weird spot.
Keith, thank you so much so far for supporting this and having this dialogue with us. I'm Sadie Flateman. I'm an oyster farmer on Block Island and the owner of Great Salt Pond Oyster Company. And Catherine and I are here because we want Block Island shellfish to become a resilient local food source and year-round industry. And the problem that we face is that there is no infrastructure. This month, fellow farmer Catherine Puckett and I seized the opportunity to apply for the RFSI grant, which is a chance to fund the infrastructure we need, which is a dock to land our product and a facility to clean and store shellfish. What I experienced working on the Great Salt Pond is an environment that favors recreational use. There's currently no commercial dock space. The inefficiencies of manual labor and logistics involved in complying with the DEM's required protocols for proper handling of shellfish, which is a food safety concern, are so challenging due to the lack of infrastructure that the work that we do is basically a labor of love. The total budget for our project is actually updated since you've seen it last. It's $570,000, which would be funded 75% by the RFSI grant and 25% raised by Catherine and I. So the $142,000 in matching funds we could raise in kind through our own administering of the grant and through fundraising. But the most significant match could be in the lease of land for the 2-year period of the project, building the dock and facility. So we are seeking support in locating a site for this infrastructure in New Harbor and a lease for the commercial dock. This is not money that would be outlaid by the town or taxpayers. It's a match in kind just by waiving the fee, by waiving the lease fee. So the two things that we need in addition to your letter of support, if we are to get this grant, is to work with us in locating the site and granting us a lease.
So the critical person here for me is Kate McConville. You know what I mean? Like, I rely on her take on a lot of nearly everything related to the pond. So,
Sure.
I think, my sense is that we all want to be supportive and helpful. I think, continuing to work, I know you've been working with Kate, it's like, that was a master of the obvious kind of a comment, but working with Kate and Mary Ann, and, to the extent that you need any of the four of us, I think we're all happy to work on it. Because we had a Zoom call, when it comes to the Stampede Meadow property, there's a what is it called? A management committee, or there's a group that sort of oversees that. In fact, I think we have to appoint a new member now that Sven has resigned. So I guess what I would say is, over the next couple of weeks, please work with them, and kind of tell us what we need to do.
Are we okay on the classification of the water?
Good question. I don't know.
You mean as an approved water source?
No, CMS.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the last commercial,
places
But is that the way? the map that-
George, come up to the microphone, please. Or Catherine. All three of you, come up. There's two. Just make sure you turn the green light on, Catherine.
Classified policies, some concern that the recreation is gonna push out any potential for, commercial fishing, shellfishing, whatever, I should be sure that's, in the right CRMC area.
Right.
I'm not talking about areas.
Yeah, it is in the zone.
Yeah, the pre-existing. I mean,
And there's a dock already in the plan for that site.
I think
It's just-
Martha's point is let's be sure that before we do a lot of work, that it's appropriately categorized.
Right, you're talking about the classification of the water.
The water itself, yes,
The
yes,
class 1, 2.
yes.
And, I can't picture the map right now, but I'm pretty darn sure it's the right
Well,
classification.
as Sadie and Catherine say, it's between two marinas, so presumably. But yeah. Yes. Does that work for you guys to work with Kate, Mary Ann?
Yes, it would be helpful to work with that committee and to get their
Great.
approval.
Terrific.
But ultimately, I think it is the town that we're gonna need
Yeah.
to form the lease for it.
Right.
But we'd like to start talking about that because if we get the grant, we can start.
Right.
away.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yes.
So that's what we're here to ask.
We're ready, willing, and able.
What is the grant timeline? Do you know? When's it due?
July of 2026 is, we submitted it already.
Oh, the grant's
Yeah.
been submitted.
It's literally yes. So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, when this first came up, we literally didn't have a meeting scheduled. I basically wrote a letter saying, we support aquaculture.
And when were you here? Do you know, did they give you time?
I think it's May.
That's right.
Yeah, the determination, but it's in, the award is in May and then it starts in June.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I know how hard you've worked on this and I really appreciate it.
You did a best job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Of course you can, Kim.
Just wondering, considering the postcard.
That's actually one of the, that's one of the ones that's under consideration.
The Coast Guard site does not have an approved water source.
Right.
So,
It
yeah,
has to be like a town water source. It can't be a private well.
right.
And the,
Approved by the Department of Health.
our main thing is replacing ice and things cool, and they're about to become much more restrictive on cooling and ice.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
Vibrio, the bacteria, is becoming a problem up north, and there will be more regulations, and specifically between June to October.
When the water's warm.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
and currently getting ice is very difficult and costly, and it is not something you want the harvester to be skimping on.
Yes.
And it's,
Well put.
yeah, we do not have an accessible ice machine, so that's really the top priority.
And are you talking about ice plant or? what are you talking about?
Just an industrial ice machine.
We're not talking about building. We're just put it in shipping containers so it's portable.
There are things called, the shipping container can be made to function as a refrigerator unit and a place to have electricity and water to keep your product. I'm sorry, I'm just paraphrasing from you guys, but a purpose-built shipping container to handle the processing needs that you have on the property. So they're envisioning, and I should say George Davis, Seaweed Lane. You should probably hear from them, but I couldn't help myself. I was so excited when I saw them working together on this project at a Shellfish Commission meeting that I knew this is something that really we needed to get behind, because they need a dock. They need a place where they can unload their product. If you've ever tried to move oysters, it's not an easy thing to do, and you've got to get them washed and you've got to keep them cool. And all of this is a DOH, DEM, these are all regulations. And if they're ever going to expand their businesses and be full service here to the island, as well as being able to market more to the mainland, they need this, they need these facilities.
Sure.
And when this grant came up, it was a once in a lifetime. Of course, they always say that, right? But the person we work with the Rhode Island Food Policy Council said you need to go for it. They especially like the idea of funding women-led businesses.
Yes, exactly.
And this is something they have going for themselves as well. This would benefit all the aquaculturalists though, potentially, but they're taking the lead on it.
Yeah.
And the idea is to raise this money. It's federal money that's being administered through the state to get a dock built and have a temporary processing facility. And to expand their business, but this could be, it's probably going to be on town land. So we need your approval. And what they're looking for is a lease to that land to be able to operate there over time.
So what we've established is that you guys are going to work with Mary Ann and Kate and come back to us, right?
Yeah, and I know Kate's in support of this too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So she wrote a
Everybody is.
letter in support, the Shellfish Commission,
Yes.
the Committee for the Great Salt Pond, Keith did. So anyway,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome, George. It's always so good to hear from you. Amy could not make it because of the variation in my schedule, so we'll just move that. Report of the town manager, fantastic, number 22.
So,
Number 22 on your list, but number 1 on your.
it's kind of stale. It's a few weeks old. It's before you. There's a couple of things I did want to update you on since this particular report was written. And one was the grant award that we spoke about earlier with from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. The other thing, which is more concerning and extremely disappointing news, one of the things that is on this report under administration that Mike Shea and I will participate in Zoom meeting with representatives from RIDOT to discuss the 20 million road work and new facility project, which was scheduled for, I guess, was last Thursday. And Mike and I went to that meeting, and we were told at that meeting that RIDOT included in their budget the $5 million for the new facility. Unfortunately, that $5 million did not make it to the governor's budget, which is really concerning for us because we've been working with RIDOT probably for the past year. We've had a number of meetings. We've gone and looked at sketches, design, different things about the facility. Yeah, it's been but the most recent year, we really got working very closely with them. So tomorrow afternoon, as soon as we found out, I called our representative, our senator. I also reached out to the governor's office directly. Tomorrow, there's a meeting with myself, Keith, our lobbyist, and Representative Spears, and also Senator Elena tomorrow to discuss this. I have had some follow-up conversation with RIDOT. They said it's still in their work project. It just didn't get funded. There's about a half dozen projects, including ours, that did not get funded. So hopefully working with our representatives, we'll get it back in the governor's budget. I'm not sure because we have been working very closely with RIDOT, and we had every intentions of thinking we would move forward with this project. And we've always had some talk about design and salt and what we're doing and things of that nature. So that's news that I don't like to bring to the general public, especially after telling the general public for the last 2 years, I guess now, that we have this highway facility coming, which is much needed. The facility that currently is there, it is outdated. It needs to be torn down. When RIDOT was out here, they totally agree with us that it was a tear down. It wasn't a rehab. So we'll see what happens from here. And clearly with the bridge issue on 195, it's taken up a lot of RIDOT's time at this point. I'm hoping to get PM Carter, who we've worked with, to move on to the road work. They had an engineering company come down and assess all the state roads. The amount of work that needs to be done is significantly more than the 20 million. I've asked her to come down to meet with the council and go over that information. And it looks like I'm hoping that can be scheduled within the next month.
One detail before can we when you guys are ready, Mary Ann, Paul, I imagine Mike Shea and Tom as well. Can we have a conversation about the motor pool in the Coast Guard station?
Sure.
I just, it's an asset that we get asked about all the time. And I think doing a regular kind of setting everybody's levels and expectations, I think would be a really good idea. And I know that's front of mind as that work goes forward, but we have Mark Tilson moving out of there. We have, there's a lot going on there, Phil, whomever, but I just think it would be worth doing that. I think it's these reports are an important description of a lot of stuff that's going on that people don't know about, and I guess that's sort of the burden of governing, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and nobody thinks anything's going on. But I just would urge people to look through this one, because you know, whether it's the body worn cameras or the work that's going on the Coast Guard station or the work that Tom was talking about doing on the repeaters, there's a lot of stuff going on. And as I said to Tom, I think in a lot of ways we're our own worst enemies when it comes to talking about this stuff. And I think we need to do that. So anyway, thank you for putting this together, because as I was reading it, I was thinking, well, you know, I had forgotten we were even doing that, you know? It's June 19th. Sorry, we're canceled.
I have a simple question, but I would also begin by echoing Keith's comment, because the reality is it's pretty hard to keep up with what is really going on in town, because there's no real vehicles other than town property, town technology to share the good news and the bad news. So between this report every month and the YouTube, it fills a lot of the gaps.
Yeah.
At least makes the public smart enough to ask a few questions.
Right.
So my easy question for tonight is, I have no clue what an OPM fire department is.
Owner's project manager. Owner's project manager.
And what does that really
So
mean?
Tuesday, what you do, they started doing these with the schools. When they passed that big state bond issue, anything over $1.5 million, the schools had a hire, which calls as an OPM, what I call an OPM. And they basically are the conductor for everything. They keep the architect in line, they keep the.
Okay, now I understand.
They, all that stuff, bidding out everything. The ones we're working on with the school have been, and Tom will attest to that, they've been phenomenal.
Great. I just didn't get the acronym.
The principle there, David, is that is an essential community project
Oh, yeah.
that needed some professional kind of, what are the next steps sort of work, from budget to, you know, all that.
Believe me, anybody that's worked on big, massive construction projects,
Yes, yeah,
as I have,
yeah,
Tom has, you
yeah.
realize you have more than one boss.
Yes, right, exactly. Thank you. Any questions before we move on? Thank you very much, Mary Ann. All right, our appointments. We need a town council designated the Hodge Management Committee, term expiring 12/2025. That's your neck of the woods. How are you? I want to appoint you twice. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, Sven is on both of those under A, Molly, yeah.
You're right, Martha, it was on the last agenda. Don't say that. And I think you're right, I think you meant C.
Yeah, so let's skip this one, and then we'll return at the next meeting with the
Great,
updated version, okay?
terrific. And the town CRC,
It goes on the CRM.
yes, and the town CRMC representative sounds a lot bigger than it actually is.
It should be a lot bigger.
It should be a lot bigger than it actually is. God, it's been so long, I can't remember, but it's when there's a major application for the island.
Well, I may not even have this right. Who's here from Harbors who would know? It used to be, if there was an application, a big application for a Black Island, and there wasn't somebody on the board who represented us, because we got into this whole thing with somebody who voted here for a while, claiming he was a resident. And then when Sue Sosnowski was on, I think they said, well, she's in your district, so you're in her district. So I don't think, I also, now that this has been brought up, though, do we get the notice, ladies, do we get the notices we used to get? We used to always get notices of things from CRMC, and I've never seen any, and I don't look that carefully. Okay, good, thanks.
George?
Oh, George Davis again. So the question is, do they get published in the paper here? CRMC notices?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because I know
Get on their distribution.
you can,
Yeah.
because I do recall when people were doing aquaculture things, because they have control of that.
Yes.
And they are supposed to do a public notice, but that didn't mean we ever got notice of it.
Right.
It's challenging
Yeah.
because they don't
Yes.
It's
put it
been my
here.
practice when, I mean, I look at the notices when they come in and their agendas. And if I see anything that is for the town, I make sure that gets forwarded to the the council and the appropriate departments, which is usually Harvard's. But I haven't, it hasn't been my practice to distribute every single one unless you'd like me to change that, I'm happy to.
I don't know, but it looks like we're going to start getting more because of people trying to protect their property on the shore.
Right, I just,
and other things.
anything that does have New Shore in it is being distributed.
Okay, wonderful. Thank
I
you.
only meant New Shore. I did not mean,
Yeah, that's what the practice is.
Yeah.
I'm not distributing anything having to do with mainland applications.
So, can we do, little I and 1 and 2 at our next meeting? We have had, applicants for, Shellfish Commission. I did, hear from someone who would like to be on Juvenile Housing Board or Hearing Board Juvenile Hearing Board, that I, sent to you. I told her to email you. I know that we have, willingness of someone to return as the packer of fish. And we'll be making those, appointments at our next meeting, correct? Will they be right at our next meeting? Yes is fine. Yes, yeah. Those will be right. Well, at our next meeting, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. I just was, I'm heartened by the number of people we've had volunteering for a lot of these, because some weeks it's pretty spare. Beautiful. Can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Paul, congratulations.